Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the RSC cast itself. I must say it's a bit of an unusual day itself here. Not meant to be. Well, myself onto it, Maisie, however, a little bit preoccupied. That will be the reason for the delay. But we do have two charming gentlemen onto this desk here. We'll go down by one, and we'll start with the man in the middle. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Introducing, okay. I guess I'm Mox and I've been admin for since the start of last year season, I think. Yeah, and I've been dropped this season, so let's go looking for a team. Thank you. It's been great.
Yeah, I'm usually the person behind the booth, which is Maul today, so I hope he's doing a good job. I'll have a good look at what he's doing and also rate it afterwards, of course. But mainly, we're not here for us. We are here to look at the great predictions Mats, me, and some experts of the tiers have done. And probably make a lot of people mad and maybe some people happy that expect it to be a bit lower, but probably most people mad.
Well, that sounds like the plan as well. They've got the most opinionated person on replacement in the form of myself here. We won't be giving much opinions tonight anyway. We might as well kick the action off with the Masters here, gentlemen. It would be fair to say that most of us has either seen or the players going around its actions as well too here. But based on a few people's predictions already, it would be interesting to see here. So, Joe, we'll give Stingray, my former GM, which conference you want to kick things off with? Do you want to go to the red or to the blue side tonight first?
Well, I'll probably go to the blue side, so I won't have to give all my bias to my own franchise, because otherwise we will probably have some discussions afterwards.
Oh, that's a damn shame on that one. But Glacius in reverse order, starting from the bottom, of course, Sanctuary, Brave, Esports, Deathclaw. Then you have Mighty Hades for Templar. Then Symbiotes, teams, well, Serene, fourth, we'll make touch on that. Valos and Solaris, and of course Alpha Surge on the top here. So, Mork, so we might as well kick off things with you. Is this how you would have seen things transpire today, or has our experts may have got things a bit right here to start off this conversation tonight?
I mean, these points are based mostly given of stuff that they did in preseason, which obviously kind of skews a bit. But it has some truth to it. Probably some people are confused by seeing Serene at the bottom, I guess maybe. Not Serene, but Sanctuary, since not only did they win the last season, some people might have thought they would be good. But again, it's power rankings, it's preseason of Master. We can never really know anything about them.
Well, that is certainly true. We don't quite know here. I'm just having a brief look here, and we might as well go to Stingray here because he has actually been one of the experts in quotations here who did put their predictions down here. Not to throw you under the bus here, but you did have Alpha Surge at top, that's no surprise, but Team Serene 10th. So the fact that it's in fourth based on the statistics and standings on it, can I ask you why maybe such a polarity there to start with?
Well, we will get to that when we can see the actual caster predictions and not just the power rankings after the preseason due to their stats. However, I will have a talk about that roster and what I think about it, and also why I think that 9 other teams will probably finish above them in the season, which I'm also in agreement with at least the expert of the master tier.
9 other teams is going to, above them. All right, well, I might as well move on to that in a second here, just for the sake of clearing up the English conference in reverse order. Illusionary, Forge, and then you have Panthera, Mighty Hades, Fearless, then you have Legend Mina 20R, and surprisingly DSQ in the top 3, so either Tavish is going around potentially bribing people with free merchandise, and then Green Phoenix up the second normally does quite well, to be fair, in the Master tier, although some people might disagree well on the panel here. And of course then we have Attack It. So Mal, can we potentially move to one of the other graphics here and get the major bit of the debate going on here, which is some people might be looking at champions and dark horse. I don't know which way we're going to go first here, but it looks like just want to roughly double check here. Whose are we reading off here for this particular bracket?
Well, I'll just keep continuing what I've already started with Team Serene in 10th. And as you can probably see on the database, they're over 100 CMB under the cap. Datho, who was the highest player, was previously a sub on ERS Shadow. So that's a big jump up from being like the 4th player to the 1st player on the roster. I gotta admit, I haven't seen much from Cham so far, who's on 1905. April and Draw Splashes on 1865 and 77 are decent and have done decently in the past. But just in comparison to the other rosters, I think they will fall short over the season, at least if they stay in that combination.
Well, fair enough here. We might look at the 9th spot as well that has popped up as well too here, and I think based on that is Illusionary, and of course Tempest following likewise here. Anything to add so far here based on what Stingray has said on the previous 2, or would you like to talk about any of these particular?
Pretty sure that when it comes to Master, it was generally more of a consensus pick between the 3 people that were doing it, which was Motshuk, Stingray, and Jazz, if I recall correctly. And in this case, maybe we can focus more on Illusion, which is Miller, who has played a few seasons, has been a few seasons, but generally might even call himself washed. And then we have both Salasia, Wicks, and Dan6 coming up from last season's Euros Challenger, so 1600 range. Then before Wicks, I'm pretty sure Wicks has won at least the RSC Cup, or and has been to finals in RSC14, which was also with Bosse. But I guess that's what the predictors thought in 9th. And then when it comes to DevCloud, I will be Slofi, who has been previously a premier player for at least a bit. But I'm pretty sure they might have been FA. I don't think they had a team. Then you have Crisps, who has won before. I believe that was either RSC11 or RSC... I think it was RSC11 with NW7 and Peachy Boy.
Monkey Boy.
Yeah, NW7 is Monkey Mode, yeah. And then Business, who I won't lie, I have never heard of before, and then Potato, coming back after a long break. Let's say previously being challenger tier, but that's been over a year ago, so not really much to say about that.
Yeah, fair enough as well, but we do have 20R and, of course, Charmanet coming up next there in the 8th in terms of where the predictors have win to in 20R. I would sit here and say that there's two players that I believe Stingray we've known for a brief bit in terms of faith there. Halo, in terms of its capability as a player, has done a fair while here. Um, Now, I know you've got them quite firmly around this position as well too. So why is a strong player in the form of like a Halo predicted so down? Is it just feeling at this point here, or is it based on pre-seasons? Your thought there?
Yeah, well, as you already said, probably both of them will be a bit surprising to people because 20R, they reached the final of the preseason, which they lost to our team. But my issue or my concern with this team, and probably also the same with Mats and Jazz, who have them in 7th and 8th, so quite similar, is Halo always having a player who's played around him and who was probably better than him and who he could like rely on with Mimical and Cans in the 2 seasons before. Tuam is an unproven player, and I have to admit, the only thing I can base that off is the one game I've watched of them, and that wasn't great in the final. And Faith is doing a big step up from Elite last season, where he has been doing not so well. So this will be a team that can definitely prove themselves, but at the moment I don't see them getting into playing positions. For Volps, on the other hand, we have Jerku, who's been doing great in the seasons before. However, the issue I had with them, because I have them in 9th, Mats has them in 6th, and Jess has them in 8th, is that both O, Leon, and Trixa have done big jumps when it comes to their CMV. And they've never played in Master before. And I also don't believe that Vix is the person that can be reliable to like compensate for those two players. But I can see Trixa stepping up and then this team definitely overperforming 8th.
Well, it's a fair argument in the Baker Dolls here. So we do move to Braves, Inferno, and Leon in 7th. The Panthera's respective franchise name there. And looking briefly on it, NC, I mean, Daesh there, Pocket Beast. I mean, they are players that has been around here before, and respectively for Panthera. I mean, Helia, Trasky is, from a weak position here in terms of that there. Mox, would I be right in saying here that this might just be that the quality higher up here is dictating things here? Or is it similar reasons here that we're hearing for the likes of 20R why they're dropping down in terms of people's predictions?
I mean, generally, obviously, these are predictions and we can predict the future. And this is based on mostly what people would assume of the players. I don't, I'm not that very well versed in Master. I remember Ish has been a top elite sub-master level player for at least a few seasons now. Then you have Traska, which, I've heard the name, but can't really say that much more. Genzochilia. Again, I'm not really that well versed in Master Tier, which is unfortunate. And for when it comes to Brave, you have NC, also the GM. Obviously, has been doing well in leagues for at least a few seasons now. Bucket Beast, who is basically going up at least 100 CMV for a few seasons now. Dash, who won with Sanctuary last season, but that was a sub, so maybe he can prove himself on a main roster here. And then Shiny, who's also been in RSC12, he was challenger, so that's also a big step up. So maybe we can see. We'll just see what we can see from them. But for now, predictors have usually generally kept close to each other. That it's almost as consensus. like Leo was placed 6th, 7th, and 7th, so the people that might know a bit more about Master Tier agree that they would be around that bracket, so I won't complain.
Well, I think there might be more people complaining maybe of my pronunciation of one of those players. Unfortunately, getting that one slightly wrong here, so it could be a night of maybe misslips tonight. But maybe we might see the Fields of the Week returning. Who knows? That could be it here. But speaking about people from the Masters here, normally on the podcast itself here, Kingsman Gas. GMA, GM Slash in terms of Symbiotes has been around for a while here. Downsku's Power Team Llama as well. And, again, an experienced player, and we seem to be having this theme right now where saying today that these players are being slightly overlooked. I mean, Mighty Hades, but Larson, Resonam as well too, aren't necessarily being slightly pushed higher up here. It seems to be that maybe, and I slightly was a bit critical, especially we're in the elites draft on day 2, and maybe people might correct me if there were GMs and AGMs like yourself here. It seems to be plans unraveled here, and maybe have they've got the worst end of the stick here based on the 5 teams so far.
I would personally disagree that they have had like a bad team in the end. However, the issue all 3 of us had, except Jazz for Dominion, who predicted them in 3rd, Mats and me have them in 7th, is that both Reshiram and Dansku have been more in the Premier level before. And we've seen before, especially in ERS, where we already had higher players, or in general, that if you have such a big difference in CMB between the highest and the lowest people, it's just difficult to link up with each other. So these teams haven't really been the best in the seasons in ERS, and we would also guess the same for RSC. Especially for Dominion, Llama has been rated quite highly by a lot of people, but I personally can't say much about him. And Kingsman Gas and Natsali just have to prove themselves as the thirds they can be for Dansku to just support him. Might have Hades, I would probably rate them a bit higher even than Dominion, because Verify has proven himself, as well as Larson, to play well in Master, and I think they have more potential to be a bit higher. And for Dominion, it just depends on how Dansku can adapt.
Well, fair enough. We are sort of knocking on to the plans or area. Of course, this was how the season was to end the regular section, but we might as well move into that sort of maybe the debate on swapping around DSQ Nox, and of course Sanctuary's Haven has popped up here, and I'm just having a quick look here with Sanctuary here. Monkey Mode, Pesky, Bullet, and Yoshi. I would say one player sticks out like a sore thumb there, but I'll say there's certainly 3 on that roster there, Marks, that would be heavy contenders by adding on my previous season to challenge for the title here. So the fact they're bang in the middle here, Sanctuary, might throw a few people out of loop here.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to obviously of Monkey Mode, who went back to back, then Bola was player of the season. It was definitely with Nox, so I think it was RSC12, not sure though. And then you have Pesky, who won last season after a while. Yishi was subbed up, was moved up a tier to be sub here. In general, I think with this roster, was my prediction is these are all good players in terms of at least proving themselves. The thing is, they do have quite a bit of CMV Cup left. I think that might have been a part of what got the Stingray, Mats, and Jazz to put them maybe not in the contender category yet. And then moving on to Nox, I think those are also very known names in the RSC scene of SK, Spoods, and Captain Quark. Obviously playing for a lot of seasons, all of them having some sort of successes in other seasons. I can't really say much about IR on sub, but in general, definitely that bottom of the top half category seems fine to me.
Well, it is an interesting debate that many would be sparking towards, and I know if I'm right in saying Serene Captain Cork was Green Phoenix last season.
You are in ERS.
Yes, in the RS. I was trying to work out what was RSC or ERS, but he has performed quite well, but moving quite nicely into where we are looking to maybe in the ranges of dark horses, maybe champions on other people's predictions here. Forge and the Valkans and Shadow's Abyss here. Of course, that is Sir Chubby or Cubby, as I keep pronouncing wrongly on broadcast multiple times, Cal, and respectfully so here, Earthling, Evans, Hammond, and of course Bran in terms of that as the respective rosters. And we'll start with you, Stingray here. Where do you want to kick off with?
When we've just been talking about former GP players, we can just go to Shadow with Earthling Joyev as the 2K player on the team, together with Emils on 1940 and Harvey on 1850. This is just a solid team. I don't think they will be a lot higher. I don't think they will be a lot lower. Both Joyev and Emils have been doing great this season they last played. Emils together with Ashik on Dexterity in ERS, and Joyev on GP 2 seasons ago, or last season in RSC. And I think fourth is perfectly fine with them. They might be a bit higher, but that's about the spot where I'm quite certain they will end up. For Vulcan, it's a bit different. This team is just solid. Serv, Ripurai, Kabi, all veterans, have been doing well pretty much every time they played. And depending on how the season goes, I can also see them a bit higher. But due to the quality we have in Master this season, with the cap being hired, I think fourth is a good spot for them.
Certainly interesting where the spots have gone here, but I do notice that a certain Green Phoenix has popped up here, so we'll just go to the man who isn't the GM for that particular franchise, and we'll might as well look at the fact that they do have an interesting roster. I'm not going to pick his mind yet. Morks, who do you want here? Solaris or Green Phoenix here? And should we maybe pick on the fact that Stingray might have even picked his team to be number one in this particular tier as well too? It might be a bit of bias slipping in perhaps.
I mean, when it comes to Green Phoenix, you can definitely see some, at least comparing Stingray to the other picks of Mats and Jazz. Some copium, but probably Stingray again going for Mimico, who he has had quite a few times. Also did well on 20 hours season in ERS. Stingray putting them first, Mats fourth, just fifth. I don't really have much to say about the players, except that they did win preseason and quite sweeping both of their knockouts. Obviously, preseason winners can't win the tier, so there you go, Stingray. But definitely good luck.
I can confirm that, by the way.
And then when it comes to Solaris, unfortunately, I literally have not heard of any of the players. So if you want to take it away, Stingray, if you know why you put them where you did.
I think everyone put them quite highly, even though... Sorry, continue.
No, you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Everyone put them quite highly, and probably the lowest, which I'm a bit surprised by, but Brovo is probably the best 1830 or low player in the league right now, from what we've seen in preseason. I haven't seen much from First, or however you pronounce that, I have no idea. But Onyx is a great pickup, and I was quite surprised he went so late in draft, because we were also looking at him if we didn't get Mimical as second, which wasn't going to happen, but just in case. So them being predicted 5th, 3rd, and 4th is totally reasonable, and I can see them being really good this season.
That's fair, and we've just had maybe a few advertisements popped up on your screens. Of course, you can, subscribe to, of course, the channel, maybe to avoid those particular pesky little bugs that may be swatting around here. But I use that word quite round here because it seems to be a bit of an Irish theme here knocking around the second. At least 4 names rattling around here, and one very much who is book smart as well. And I'm not going to say who, but we certainly know, at least in terms of the Irish scene, and that one's Legend Mania will might as well look at Tomster, Dealin's Decomp, of course, better likely the sub there, and then seeing that Mill, Jaffa, and Minty, of course, for 4 Templars respective roster. And Joe, there's a bit of a saying that Dealing says it's usually every 3 seasons he's won a trophy. I think this is what the 4th or 5th season that he hasn't won anything. So is it way overdue here, Box, that maybe has he got the roster to do so here?
I mean, you did switch up the rosters. Legend Mania is Sky's Milne and Jaffa as main with Menti on sub. I assume sub. And then for Templar is Tomster, Dillinge, Decom, and Bertram. Dillinge being AGM of for Templar as well. But definitely, yeah, both very solid rosters. Obviously, Legend Mania being a team of players that have already had some success. Milne winning ERS, Skies, winning ERS as well. Just Milne winning in the previous season, and Skies winning in the most recent season. And then Tomster, Dillinge, this roster did very well in ERS playoffs last season as well. Kind of surprised some people maybe. But yeah, generally these rosters predicted quite highly. Stingray not being so fond of... I'm mistaken. Yeah. Legend Mania being predicted second all around by the predictors, so I guess they do think of them highly.
Well, that's fair, and we might as well wrap up, at least in terms of Alpha Surge and, of course, Asaka from the statistical side, and then the ratings from the so-called experts, at least one of them is so. And, I mean, Alpha Surge with just being and Kern, and I believe Asaka is DMY, Joss, I believe, is streaming site, or Rapids, who, of course, previous champion, I believe, in the Elite. Rapids, that could have been ERS, to be fair, because I had the misfortune of playing against the man. But in terms of the top of this sort of tree here, we'll go to Stingray on this one here. To me here, and I could be wrong here, and this might be the first kick of the debate here heading into the Champions or Dark Horse, it seems that the second place teams should be at the first ones here, unless you're going to argue that the statistics here and the predicting of the sort of the eye test is what people would say.
Well, our reasoning for both the predicted champion and the Dark Horse you will see in a second is more pretty much the playoff run that Tomster and D-Lynch had in ERS. And we just believe they can go all the way. They're probably not the best league play team, which they've also shown in ERS, but D-Comp is pretty much already 100 CMB or 100 MMR over his current peak. And he's grinding the game. And D-Lynch and Tomster have played a lot together, so we just think their chemistry can bring them through in the end. But of course, we also want to talk about the first place teams, Jazz, Stab, Bien, and Kairu. Jazz is just absolutely farming Master at the moment in scrims or just in preseason. They've looked great. Stab is back after winning in RSC11, I believe. Or 10. Can't quite remember. And he's also looking as good as ever, with Bien, my teammate in another league, also rating him quite highly. On the other side, we have a stacker with Dreamy, Josh, and Rapidza, which I'm quite surprised about that both Mutz and Jazz personally have put them on first. Both Josh and Dreamy didn't have the best results in ERS, and they also did well in preseason, but not as well against teams we would need them to win against convincingly if they want to be the best team in the league.
Well, that's a fair point, and all that there. Wrapping up here, near enough the Masters here is on your screens. Therefore, Templar is meant to be the champions based on the the top predictors, shall we say, who was working behind the scenes in the Dark Horse being Nox and sort of Morks in terms of the last word of Masters here. Is there anything that we may have missed here?
I think we've talked about most of the stuff, and we've already done, I think, over half an hour of talking about Master, so I guess I'll just maybe move on to Elite.
Yeah, we might as well move on. The best tier of course, RSC, not biased, of course, at all, but not playing into this one here. I'm going from the statistical side of things here. And going from the bottom side of Ignis is Integrity, Bladesmiths, Deception, Econ, Carbo, Insanity, Scorch, $20 Raven, Aztecas, Thanos, and then from the, of course, Glacius is the DevCloud, Team Serene, Alpha Surge, Fearless Esports, Brave Esports, Blaze for Templar, Solaris, Symbiotes, Sanctuary's Temple, and Shadow's Darkness, rounding things up in terms of the numbers. I would say there that the Mighty Hades numbers, the kick-off thing being the largest, if I'm correct here, Mark's in saying, only lost in the grand final of pre-season and actually dropped more games in that grand final than any other part of the tournament.
No, they've actually lost the semi-finals, but
They lost the semi-final. Oh, Joe, what? They're rubbish then.
3 games in the semi-finals, whereas previously in groups they only dropped 2 games out of 16.
They're rubbish, then reach the final. Scrap them out. Anyways, we might as well jump straight into the where our meant to be experts in. Of course, Stingray months have continued all the way through. We have Mistral from Shadow, funny enough, so it'll be interesting to see how it is here. And I think I might put a wee spin on one or two things as well too. So we might as well start at 10th place here, as that will be how the debate will be going. We go on to DevCloud and Insanity from Legend Media, and I believe that's Rollback Links, Kazar and Wilkie from Legend Media, and from, of course, DevCloud, that is Spoods, Fall, CMAT, and Rube. I would suggest here that the thinking is Stingray that a lot of inexperience on DevCloud, looking more like a CMAT here, not to point fingers, but not necessarily the well-known one there.
Exactly as you said. We have 10th throughout the board. Nobody predicted them even 9th. We have Fall, CMAT, and Rube who've all come up from lower tiers, and Spots who hasn't really played a lot recently in the leagues, so there's a lot of weight on his shoulders. Fall has been grinding, but I'm not sure if that can compensate what the team looks like at the moment, but they're definitely capable of proving us wrong. For the other conference, I have to say that this is probably the closest conference between 1st and 10th we've had before. Like, I could switch someone 4 places and it would still not be as wrong. So being 10th is definitely not as bad as it looks for Tigris, for Cyclone.
Yeah, briefly before bouncing any further there, it would be fair to say Link's decently strong player here, but Rollback Noodles was a day 2 pick. And many was completely surprised by that and heard a few talks behind the scenes should have actually been in day 1. So the fact that those 2 type of players are sitting at the bottom may show you how close it is. But Solaris and of course Tigray in terms of Panceras in terms of the roster here has bounced up next here. So Max, I'll go with you here. The lineups for the respective rosters here and your initial thoughts here. Do they deserve to be this low?
I mean, when we have Solaris, we have Fuse, Sav, Dragon, and that's being. I'm pretty sure he might have been subbed up, or might have just been Minelite. That's also that's also associated with Solaris quite a bit, so we can see why he got the sub spot. And then we have Fused, who has been in the league. I'm not sure about if they have that. I'm not sure how they have done in previous seasons. I'm pretty sure that Saf has been on a Team Serene in a similar tier, and then Dragon might be coming up from Rival, but don't quote me on that. And then for the Tigris side, we have Spacey, obviously one of the biggest wafflers in RSC. also AGM. Then we have Magic Move, and Space and Magic Move have played last season together of ERS. They did, I think they did fine at the finished around mid-table in league play. Axios did, at least he did playoffs of RSC12 rival after being subbed into the team on the last possible moment. But that was rival, that was a year ago, so can't really say much about it now. And then X got, because why not, been going down in tiers, so we'll see. Probably a good pickup on sub. Yeah, in general, I believe that Elite this season is very stacked. Most rosters can do well, and it just depends on who clicks the best.
Certainly so. Carbo there and Alstrani, Defunct and Weasels. Few known players there coming up at 8, but not necessarily particularly doing much here. Singleray being the more generous one there, 2 9s across the board, however elsewhere. Although that was in terms of Fish, Gamey, and I believe that's Jebs and Kieran. Now, that there in terms of me, when you look at it initially, I mean, Gamey, very long-term player in the league, has been here, done it before. Fish, mechanically decently sound here. Played with him no more than an hour ago before this very stream here. And, well, let's just say that not one of the respective people who was doing the predictions here agreed on that particular outcome. So, Stingray, why so low here?
It's pretty much just as Mox said. Elite is incredibly stacked this season, and this team only has one proven player in Gamey. Fish has been on the winning roster in Elite last season, but to be fair, with the Rapida, they had by far the best player in the tier, and I'm not sure how high we can rate this achievement so far. So we will just have to see how they will do in the league, together with Karen as their 4th. And for Carbo, just 2 of them are unknown players, or at least new players to the league. Storny dropping down from Master after not playing for a while, and Wessel coming up from Challenger. This is also a team that's just thrown together, and we can't really rate at the moment. So they will just have to prove themselves. I personally have them in 6th. Mats and Miffler have them in 9th, because I rate Alf and Vessel in Elite, but this is not much to go off for this team right now.
Well, fair enough, and once again, not by design, but a Green Phoenix logo in the form of Scorch came up the, shall we say, the caster's home it seemed to be for a few seasons, ended up maybe not making it, maybe making it, sometimes comfortably making it. They're in 7th, their roster, of course, Charlie Fat Cat Pirate and Carson, respectively, and of course, Symbiotes who have just popped up here. Not Liam, Spylaw, Rico, and Rapids here at Mox. It would be fair to say 2 AGMs on respective rosters here, but not necessarily impressing anybody when it comes in terms of their appearance here. Quite low down here for 2 sides that some teams are a little bit higher than just 7th.
I mean, yeah, for Green Phoenix, it's just it's still better than the normal Green Phoenix Elite team for predictions. We would expect them to be dead bottom and most seasons, so they're making progress. We have Patrick the AGM. However much cope he wants to fuel into everyone. Even Stingray predicted them 7th. So when it comes to this roster, I don't really know much of the people outside of Patroid, who has subbed up from Rival to be, I assume, sub. Charlie, I'm pretty sure, has had some problems with our web app and signing up, so we will not be playing one series in the first week.
Okay.
And then when it comes to Symbiotes, we have Liam, who is going down tiers. At least I know he has been master. I'm pretty sure he won on one of those Peachy. I think he won with when it was Crisp, Monkey Mode, and Peachy Boy. Then we have Spider, who I can't say much about. Rico, who I've actually played last season of VRS with, who I guess was a bit impressive mechanically to me, but I was kind of surprised to see him in that 1700 range, because I thought he stopped playing the game after ERS ended. And then obviously the goofy and silly Rapids, who's usually associated with Forge, this time being snatched up by Symbios to be their sub. Generally consensus pick around 8th. So
Fair enough. Here, 20R has popped up at 6. That is, of course, not. No one knows Novus and Serenity. Like, of course, the likely potential sub there, Serenity, who announced his retirement, has technically came out within months, even if that. So, typical RL player in terms of a young man, but knocking near 30. Maybe adding a few years onto that one. But I will say here, and Stingray will maybe disagree with me here, but there is a massive, massive disservice here to Team Serene here right now. Kieran, Wine, and Nick O'Brien, the likely sub here, sitting in 6 here. Why, first of all?
First of all, we have 4 teams we think are better, but we have predictions on 5th, 5th, and 6th. 5th, 5th, and 6th throughout the board. But I agree with you that the combination of Kieran and Wine was incredibly good last season in ERS on off user. And they are adding Nix on that roster, who was on Fork last season in ERS, as well as Brian as a sub. I can see this team doing well. However, from what I've heard with all players, I'm not sure if they have the winning mentality for the end. And that's pretty much my reasoning for the placement. I can't speak for Mats and Mithril, but I could guess it goes in the same direction. For 20R on the other side, that is honestly a wild mix to me. Nova going up from a very disappointing season in Challenger in ERS. Salvahard, who had a great season, already on 20R in ERS. They came 3rd, I believe, in league play. Not sure how they did in playoffs. And Serenity switching franchises twice and having quite a mixed season. I don't know much about this roster, and the reason I have them so low is simply because I know more about other teams and haven't seen much, but they can definitely surprise.
Fair enough. I was about to lose the head with Team Serene that low. I really was ready to go, and to be fair, I can go. But I've just seen something so disrespectful. And Joe, I'm just going to sit there and say this here. Mighty Hades has popped up 5th. I literally got a DM here by maybe a GM perhaps here. And that may be 3 at 5. He just won a 4-0 in the Masters here against somebody who may be in the top of the predictions. He's sitting 5th with a teammate with Strafe who did play last season under Green Phoenix's ERS team. Might have been captained by myself. So, Rox, well, first of all here, why? Why have Stingray gone mad here? I just called you Rox instead of Mox there, but I'm just lost it here because it's madness.
It does happen, I guess. Generally, for this, we can, if you would actually see the predictions, it has been very fine margins between 5th, 4th, 3rd, and even 2nd. They're all very close to each other being predicted. So it was just kind of how it went. But generally, yeah, season coming after a bit of a break, but coming down from a master tier where he did fine. Then Kevin, who's always points farming and a really good pickup for fantasy usually. Strafe again was on a very disappointing master roster of for Templar some seasons ago. I'm not sure, but in general usually does okay in league play, except for that one season. And then Yami, who has been going on a rise. Rising about a tier every season slowly as sub, but we can see some nepotism with Yami on sub, but obviously this is RSC, we will get a lot of nepotism. And then for the other side where we have Brave, it's GMB, Reptic, Frank, and Jordi. Jordi did very well on ERS last season, but that was Challenger tier, so one tier lower. Frank RSC11 player of the season. And then Reptic, generally really solid player. I don't have much to say about GMB. I'm pretty sure he is a non-player, but unfortunately not for me. When it comes to Glacis, the predictors have been a bit more. They've been a bit more agreed with each other, and like putting an actual order. And when it comes to Ignis, it's just chaos. Everyone is right next to each other. So don't take the predictions are much closer to each other in Ignis, so don't take too much to heart your fifth place, Kevin.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
Kevin sweeping 4-0, being ignored, Frank being somewhat dropped down, but Bladesmith popped up there, Kez of Wilfie and Moggy. Jason's the likely sub there, seen him in the stream against Team Serene, very close, very interesting. Moggy, very much a very capable player, has done a lot in the previous seasons, Wilfie likewise, and two. And you know what, of course, there is, of course, Temple there from Sanctuary, Form, Sarge, Metsu, and Excel, who one player probably decent, but we may as well bounce straight on to the conversation here. So we're catching up to the graphic here for Templar, and of course, Fearless Esports moving on. And I believe, just off the top of my head here, we might see a former Green Phoenix man, J Hill, Quackers, Vec, and Fane for Fearless, and respectively for Templar. We'll be looking at the likes of Friday's team, Shad Hypnos and Ellie Kitten, who replaced Eagle Crane, who was the original drafted team there that was later traded. So, Stingray, what's going on here?
Well, those are just 16 players that are all well known within the league. Like in Elite, we have known players all around the place. Not many new players. It's just a close community in Elite. Nobody wants to move up. Nobody wants to drop down. Everyone's just staying where they are. So we end up with rosters of people who've been here for years, and we rate them quite highly, all of them throughout the board, with for Templar just beating out Temple by an interesting prediction for Templar, with Mutz and me predicted them second, and Mithra only putting them in fifth, as well as Temple, myself putting them in sixth, Mutz putting them in fourth, and Mithra putting them in third. So there's some disagreement, at least in those spaces in the table, but Elite is looking very close, and everyone who's playing each other knows how they play because they played against each other like 50 times already. So we're looking towards an interesting season for sure.
Yeah, we may as well bounce to second in terms of this one here, and it'll be interesting to see how this one's going. Alpha Surge, and of course, as Taka has came out here. So, first of all, I believe it's Chaldees or RMD, Flute, and Appy, which, first of all, here, I'm surprised that Appy's the sub there. You know, he's a very capable player. The fact that, you know, Chaldees done here, but RDM, who was first pick, or was at least a surprise, may actually not been the first pick here. You know, that's a strong roster by any given taking off Stingray's point here. It seems to be everybody knows each other and seems to be far too close here. So bouncing from there, it's Darkness and of course Deception, and Mox, we might as well have sort of the last final word of Elite tiers. So what's your thoughts here with the top two teams?
I guess for Shadow, we have Murphy Mamba and Yellow Crab. I'm pretty sure they did not expect to get Yellow Crab so late in the draft, so they were very happy with that. Then you have Mamba, who's been franchise management for Sanctuary, did very well. Mifro, doing quite well last season of ERS, but in general also just going up in tiers. He was at least 2 or 3 seasons ago. He was still rival, and then Snow or SNW played with Serenity last season. Did somewhat okay. And for Deception, usually this is just like a really great roster. What came of Snow messaging his draftees that he was sorry that they were drafted to him. It was a consensus first pick of Easy Panda, who is one of the three times champions. And you have Sato, who's obviously been an elite staple, even though his pick sometimes wasn't. And then Eevee, who obviously farms points and is generally a great player.
Well, certainly
For
so. I was just going to say certainly so, and I agree with you there, but might as well wrap up the late here. There's Blaze and Darkness has popped up there in terms of the final two, in terms of Dark Horse and predicted champions. I think we've been here for about 20 minutes, gentlemen. I think we might need to bounce on to Rival here because my blood's about to boil here because I think certainly bias, certainly for Darkness there. So, Mal, could you be ever so kind here to bounce to Rival? And the top two there is, of course, Symbiotes and, of course, Mighty Hades, 392 to 362 in terms of statistics and the stats and everything from wins and everything else bouncing across here. Joe, looking at that recently, I think that's probably the most closest here. I think that's the lowest number has popped up there with Legend Media from the bottom. Forge, of course, Illusionary, Panthera, Azteca, DSQ, Fearless, 20R, and Green Phoenix for Ignis, respectively. So, Brave, Shadow, DevCloud, Solaris, Vipus, Alpha Surge for Templar, Sanctuary, and Team Serene. So, with that power rankings there, and to the great speed that Mel would be hoping for, might as well go to the more controversial side of the podcast here, which is, of course, the rival predictions here. And I believe that we have both gentlemen here who has put their inputs in here, so we might as well look at Shock and, of course, Legend Medias, and we'll kick things off with the conversation to you, Stingray.
Oh, well. From what I've seen in the past 3 seasons, Legend Mania has probably been the most unanimous last pick of all time. They've also been last in the stats rankings by quite a bit. None of the players on the team has been rated by anyone that has been giving predictions, and it's just tense throughout the board. And there was not much hope from what I've heard for them. On the other side, we have Shock, which is a bit of a different story with Dash, Skips, Max Power, and Stealthy Wolf. They've been predicted 10th, 9th, and 10th, but I still think there's a huge difference between Legend Mania and Deathcloud, and I can see them doing a lot better than their counterpart on the other conference.
Well, that's fair. So, with the respective temps, we may as well bounce to the 9th there, Flame and Journeyman. And Mox, I mean, you've had more of a say than any other teams in terms of the spreadsheets here. Can you defend your picks here, or is it just a slight one of a surprise here?
For this, it might be a surprise to people that have been following players' trackers because Brave does have a player who has already picked 1700. However, like with the picks of 9th, 8th, and 9th, generally we kind of found a little bit of a consensus again of putting them where they are right now. And for the opposite side, we have Forge, who is a different story of Weekend, Toe, Zodi, and Jambi. Those are all players that have been in the league for a long time. Zodi, a rival for a long time. Jambi, coming off of a break for reasons. And then Toe, who has been in that CMV range for a bit of time right now as well. For this, in this case, I would still say that it's the same as previous part. Is I think that Brave might surprise people, and Brave might actually do fine. I do not put the same faith in Forge, who have also been a consensus 9th pick after a consensus 10th pick of Legend Mania in that conference.
And to the stairwell of the dizzying heights of 8th place, Stingray, we do see Sanctuary and DSQ respectively bouncing here, and I'm not saying here that should be a surprise to yourself here, but it looks like your numbers have matched up where everybody else seems to be here to small extents with a discrepancy on the Glacier side.
I've been deceived just about 2 hours before the stream started to put Sanctuary a bit higher because I've been told by two people that they've been apparently doing well in scrims. My only reason before that was that I think White Sea is probably the best player on the roster, and I don't think he can like drag the weight of the other ones. But from what I've heard, they seem to have at least some potential, even though Mox put them in 10th and Rox put them in 6th. They might be a surprise for the season, but I still think an 8th place is justified at this moment in time. On the other side, we have TSQ, where we have quite some disagreement with me and Mox putting them 8th, and Rox, who might have some bias because he's on the roster, putting them 4th. The roster of Seam, Joyo, Chronic, and Rox is just filled with people that haven't really been doing well in the past in the league, except for Seam, who was second in ER's Challenger last season in the league play, together with the Vessel, who was moved up to Elite and is doing well there. So let's see how much that counts. But you're free to prove yourself throughout the season, even though you might already put yourself higher than you are right now.
Maybe a slight call out there, but we may as well call directly to the Robin 7th there for 20 odd, and a Solaris will be looking a little bit interesting here. There has been a bit of debate here, and well, we've heard Stingray's thought of the previous two. We may as well move to the other man who has given his spill. Do you agree here with everybody else is that this is the right placement for these two respective franchises?
When it comes to 20R, that was the roster that drafted me, and then I've been dropped.
So 10th then?
I probably would have, unless the other parts of the tier weren't as predictable as they are, but that might be just biased. But then I do rate Busy. I was the teammate of his in ERS last season. Then there's also the second AGM of Danderank, who has been in Rival for quite a bit. I don't think he has had much success. We have Sina, who is a new player, and then Bailey, who has gone finals in the previous ERS season, but that was with two players that were higher than him in Mensu and Aiko, who are both elite at the moment. So I guess we'll just see how that one goes. And then when it comes to Systema Solaris, I've put them 6th, not for the reason that I believe, compared to Stingray and Rox, putting them in 8th, not for a reason that I believe that they're really that much better than the other teams. I just don't really have much faith in some parts of that rival conference. But Sasuke has done quite well, at least in Challenger with Stingray, but hasn't had that much success since then. Spence coming down CMV basically every season. Did quite poorly last season on a team with Rox, again in Solaris. And then Łukasz was on that team with Bailey that went to finals in years, but pretty sure he was sub. Or maybe not. No, he wasn't actually. He was on a previous Hydros team with Bailey. He wasn't on that last one. And then Elias, I don't have much to say about. But general, yeah, again, pretty much quite agreeable on the picks.
Well, Hydras was mentioned, and they have actually, funny enough, appeared at 6 here on the Glacier side, so the Aztec, who has popped in here quite nicely into it, but there seems to be maybe a bit of dispute here on whether that roster should be there here. And so, well, Stingray, well, I mean, you play in it. The chat seems to be a little bit volatile there. Are they right to see them that low down in the first place?
Well, this is also a roster that has potential, in my opinion. The issue we had was just that Red and Afar have never played at that level before. They're coming from ERS Prospect. They've been a duo before, so they definitely have some chemistry. Together with Samdusk, who's also moved up, and J-Rise, who has been pretty much a sub for us 2 seasons ago in RSC and Rival. So he also didn't have the opportunity to really prove himself. This is just a roster of, well, maybes for the rest of the season. but at the moment there is not really a reason to put them higher, in my opinion, as well as Mox and Rox agreeing with the 5th and a 7th. For Azteca, which might be surprising to some people, with Matrix and Morph on the roster, who are really good for a rival, we're just unsure on their 3rd, with Anima and Den, who are currently signed, and it's just 6s throughout the board, with everyone Stingray, Mox, and Rox predicting them in the place they've ended up in.
Well, a few thoughts and points have been given here, but the much be fair to sit here and say that Illusionary has popped up, and the woman of the hour who should be sitting here defending her pick here would have potentially maybe said 4th, maybe a bit higher, who knows here. Sitting here, well, also in terms of 5th here, so Mox, from the brief look at here, from at least in terms of the Glacier side here, nobody really sort of standing there. Well, let's just put it this way: if there was a scientific paper, you're the anomaly here. So you have them at 7th, first of all. I mean, are they just outside of a play-in sort of type position, first of all, for you?
For me, I do not know the player in JHP, but I've heard some good stuff about Moe is coming up tiers again. I think that might be their best player that I do know. I'm probably still a bit salty about RSC11 and Evelius, and then I haven't really ever rated Maisie. But in general, the 5th place is probably, I guess, I would have put them a bit lower, but I'm okay with it. And then when it comes to Illusory, a lot of people have been hyping them up in league chats, also, I guess, in chat right now. But I would have, at the start, I put them lower, but I guess the hype got to me a bit, and I've moved them to 5th. Rox has much more faith in putting them 2nd. So probably it just mostly depends on whether Drizzy can carry Snow and Axlos to a good spot. That's my opinion.
I don't think Snow will be quite happy, of course, former elite player, but for Templar has came up with Vanguards, and funny enough, Ice has, and may normally have avoided this wee tango here, Stingray, that you don't get to talk about your team directly, so for the first opportunity tonight, I believe, funny enough, that you might be playing on this roster.
I am indeed, and apparently we have quite some disagreement on how well I will be playing on that roster. I will obviously not be counting my own vote there because I'm biased, but we have Mox with a 2nd and Rox with a 7th, which is very far out of each other, with one probably being around title contention and the other one not even making play-ins. But I will leave further judgment for that, and we'll see in the season how it goes. For 4th Templar, we have a roster of Daddy, Ares, Noah, and Kane, which is very interesting to me, and everyone agreed on that, which we will also see in our Dark Horse pick later. This is simply a make or break team. All of those players have proven that they can play at the top of this tier before, but I believe all of them also have left their team before. So this
is that a call out?
Might lead to this might lead to some interesting development, but if they stick together and actually play, they will definitely be a contender.
I might be wrong here with the person. I believe earlier today in RSC that there may have been a bingo card. I think that's the first time I've heard if they stick together comment tonight. So if you are filling that in, that might be lying by now. I will back Stingray in terms of a player very positionally aware and tactically astute here, so should be a lot higher than 4th. And I would say the two gentlemen who I've been talking to through the night, sitting respectfully saying 2nd would be fair. But Nightfall and Panthera, though, 3rd. And so it would be interesting to say that we may as well look at Shadow Esports first onto this one here. Are they deserving to be challenging in this region, first of all?
I mean, obviously, if we have a consensus of 3rd, 2nd, and 2nd, we should be onto something, but you never know. the roster of Combat, Diggy, Mars, who I'm pretty sure is actually sub, even though he isn't the lowest, and Breezy, who has already picked at least 1650 to my knowledge. Diggy coming from Green Phoenix, actually, picked up on the last night of preseason. Combat coming from Brave, being picked up on the last night of preseason. In general, I believe that this team will do well, but not as well as I think Kyle or Mr. Efficiency hopes. And then for Panfira, Resist Jaguar, Sen, Haza, and Pile of Dodge. Haza and Sen have already played together on an Azteca team before, and they haven't really done that well back then. Pile of Dodge was really good in last season. Well, that was not the last season, but the RSC12 season of RSC. And then Jaguar, obviously a very good coach, having a team in ROCS, I think, pretty sure. But me and Stingray putting them fourth, Frogs putting them first. Again, very close when it comes to that, and then the team that's placed in second, the margins are very fine, so I guess we'll see how the rest goes.
Well, certainly. So Mayhays and Symbiosis, of course, respectively, the two sides have been brought out, and as you said, RLCS coach has, we've seen plenty of times before. Sangre, in terms of Mighty Hades here, Terry, of course, I believe AGM Aspect, and Cynics. Cynics, I believe, was an elite player last season, dropping down here, so is this a tad bit unusual here before we, well, slightly a bit reveal the top ones early here?
Well, as you correctly said, Sinnings was elite, but Terry was also elite, so we have two people dropping down from elite, and certainly so, they're being predicted in second, or rather third throughout the board, but just the average brings them in second. And we will see later that everyone thinks this team is definitely a contender to win, just because of the experience each player has, which they've also shown by winning preseason. For Symbiotes, it's a bit different. We have Ryan also dropping down from elite, which will be a will be reoccurring a lot in those top places, together with Jackdog, Kaf, who's also been a mainstay in the league, and Klo, who's a new player from the Middle East, being predicted in second, first, and third, which also puts them in the contender category.
Well, bouncing from there, Team Serene, though, has came up, which is GC, Meaty, Sci-Fi, loss, of course, two of the management there. Fearless, respectively, so bouncing on with Art Bites and Looks, with Swaces as a likely sub here, so Mox for the top two. Are they deserving of those top two, yes or no?
Well, I was the one that didn't put Team Serene first, even though Rox and Stingray did. The roster of GC Exile, Meaty Pig, 65, and Lifeless. Lifeless did very well in RSC season 13, being the last pick of the draft and getting Player of the Season challenger. I think this team will do good. I don't think it really has a chance of winning first, but Rox and Stingray disagree with me, so we can do that. And then for Fearless, it's again a bit of a tale of me and Stingray agreeing and Rox being on a completely different pick, with both me and Stingray putting them first, Rox putting them fifth. I rate Ark, even though he is, I'm pretty sure he is a new player. From what I've seen, I rate him quite highly. Bites already having a 1700 peak, winning last season of ERS Prospect, but already going up in so much in MMR. And you have Lukfos, who's always been a rival to my, as long as I remember. He's always done well to sit himself on that third CMV spot to maybe do something against Oasis. Tried to go on a bit of a run when TBK last season ERS. I'm not sure how that ended. I don't think it was that great, but obviously also a very experienced player in terms of not only like ERC but also outside, I'm pretty sure.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Until that, their dark horses was Vanguard and of course Mighty Hades, respectively. So here, I'm just going to go for yourselves, seeing you are into the tier, and forget the numbers and statistics here. Mox, I'll start with you. I just want to name who's winning the tier straight off.
As it's looking now, I'm with Rival. The thing was last season, at least the roster that won did change quite a bit throughout the season. So if we're not seeing this, I probably say that it's gonna be either Might of Hades or Fearless. Even so, yeah, one of the ones that we predicted. And then Dark Horse Vanguards, obviously players that might be a bit more experienced, but maybe they click together and they go through.
Stingray, a name, please, of a franchise who will be the champions in this one.
Oh, we've debated a lot about this, and Erebos was one of my suggestions, so I'll probably go with them. It was not fun playing against them in the preseason final, and I don't think it will be fun playing against them in playoffs. So I can think they can stick through.
Well, fair enough. That is Rival wrapped up, shipped away. But of course, you can join the Discord down below. The link, of course, on Twitch or if YouTube later on if you are watching. If you want to join into the debate and discussion before, well, week one games already started, we might as well bounce straight into the land of Challenger onto this one here. The statistical old rankings so far here from Glacius and, of course, Brave Chateau Alpha, Lepers, Solaris, Fort Templar, Sanctuary, Death Cloud, Team Serene, and Symbiotes going from 1st to 10th. Ignis is Legend Media, 20R, Mighty Hades, Aztecs, DSQ, Forge, Panthera, Green Phoenix, Solaris, and of course Fearless. So from all that, those are your numbers and everything else. But it's nice to see from the number side of it, but it's the opinions that everybody wants. And we, of course, had Archeon, who sadly, for the first time in history of RSC's in terms of this stage, not necessarily debating his points or proving, but he does have his. And Stingray, we do have two names starting here, and Symbiotes, his former franchise, in 10th, and TSQ, respectively, so.
Well, unfortunately, we're back in Challenger, and unfortunately, we have to look at Commons or DSQ again. I don't know how they do it. They've been doing better or worse every season, but the Challenger team is just always being predicted last, and often it's also correct, unfortunately, for the players. This season, we have Nations, Flossie, Buttsnorkler, and Jason Kami. Flossie and Buttsnorkler being on the Green Phoenix Academy team last season and doing very well to get the reset after half a season and then just drop out of playoffs. But we have 10th throughout the board, nobody believing in them to be any higher. For this order, it's pretty much the same, but on a different level. We have Marbs and Mash, who are experienced in Rival, together with Twins and Pete, who pretty much I would just call the wash team. Sounds harsh, but that's just the reality of those four players, unfortunately, with 10th, 9th, and 10th in predictions.
Well, from 10th to 9th here, and Mox, we do say Mighty Hades and Death Cloud, and I believe Spacecrafts are there in chat there. It seems to be almost like a crystal ball there, predicted his placement. Does, well, based on our thoughts and opinions in terms of the three, and that is Stingray, Merits, and, or sorry, I read slightly the one ahead here, it's GM667, Arc, and Stingray. From the number side of it, are they fair? And based on the history of the players, do they deserve to be this low?
I mean, we can start with Might of Hades. So they have Potter, who did finish top 3 Rival just 4 seasons ago, but this was a long time. That was 4 seasons ago. Last season he did try to play RSC Challenger and just didn't play after a few weeks. even though they made preseason semifinals, it's a consensus 9th pick, which might be a bit surprising for some, but in my opinion, it's kind of is valid. And then for the other side of DevCloud, it's Aza, Karen, Kwabi, and Celeste RL. Karen AGM, Aza coming off. I'm not sure what he did last season. I know when a season of Challenger with Symbiotes, he did quite well. But I believe that this team is about where I would have placed them as well.
Well, fair enough. The Sentinels for Templar and 20s Ulrich has popped up here. They apparently are 8th here in Stingray. Based on the numbers of it, it's actually one of the very few ones that seems to be pretty much even across. There is, of course, a bit of discrepancy. And I believe you have Fort Templar slightly doing a bit worse here compared to the other two.
Yeah, the simple reason for that is just that I rate Quabi on Death Cloud Esports, which is why I put them above. But I think a 9th, 8th, and 8th is still pretty convincing for the place they end up in. All Merxy, Panic, Mr. Scoozy, and Voodoo are more or less unproven players. They haven't really had the best of preseason, and this is just a team I gotta admit I can't say a lot about. So any chance to prove us wrong, any chance to prove us right, but that's pretty much all to it. For 20 Rook, there's a bit more to say. A lot of people I've seen in the chats or in the discussion chats rate this team quite highly. Maybe because of Salt Skaga, who just has been solid, has played in Rival before, and is just a really good person, really good player for Rival. However, with Jason and Offanem, who've both moved up from Prospect, or rather Academy in ERS, they just have to prove themselves first, and currently me, Arch, and GM don't think they will.
Fair enough. And Brave Esports with Ember has popped up and Thera respectively 7 marks. It would be fair from a brief look here that Archeon has gone, I believe, with a former teammate of him in terms of one of these particular franchises, going quite highly up, with 2 people disagreeing with it. So I'd like to know where your thoughts are on this one, because it seems to be quite a polarizing thought here, at least on Panthera's side of things.
I mean, I'm pretty sure not only that person, but also Gecko, who has been part of RSC11 run with me, whilst Arch was the one that built the team, basically. I guess that might be some cope in this case, comparing to Stingray and GM of this team doing well, but I do see where Arch is coming from and not really playing this team highly, especially since I'm not. I don't think Raids has really had much success in terms of ERC. I don't really know Newman, and Saki Sucker is the sub, but has been in the league for a long time. I don't know if we can say washed, but that's probably one of the adjectives. For Braves roster, we have Arconix, Frost, Sabi, and Okeanos. I don't really have much to say about this roster other than I agree with it being just like a slightly below average roster, but let's say that they can prove us wrong.
I think it'd be fair to say that the sort of this tier and probably Prospect will be the interesting, the unknowns for the most part here, but Sanctuary has popped out, and so is Illusory, respectively. So, from the brief side of it here, there's, I think GM has, respectively so here, giving a nod here to Sanctuary, correct myself here, to challenge into the sort of the top 4 echelon here. So, seems to be a bit more, shall we say, supporting himself here.
Well, it might also be justified because Hunter Sam is dropping down from a rival, but admittedly he hasn't been doing well for 2 seasons. And I've also looked at scrims because I didn't know how this team played before, and they haven't looked great when it comes to results in there. AR moving up from Academy, and Nexus also being the sub, with GM being FA, I believe, for the last 2 seasons. I don't really see this team being high, which is why I put them 7th, with Arch in 6th and GM in 4th. On the other side, I'm probably the more optimistic one on Illusory because of 2 ex-Green Phoenix players on there with Hunter V and Moro DK, putting them in 5th with Arch in 7th and GM in 6th. My issue, and also the issue of other people on this team, is probably Liam and maybe Hunter, who has to drag a lot of weight as the high player. But pretty much everyone just agrees that Moro is one of the best mid-level players when it comes to CMV and Charlie, and maybe he can drag this team higher than they are predicted here.
Yeah, fair enough. Of all the tiers so far, Challenger seems to be the one with the most potency. With a lot of opinions, Alpha Surge has popped up. Green Phoenix, funny enough, and once again, we seem to be judging Stingray when speaking to his team here. Only once so far of 4 attempts, Mox. I'm just having a brief look here, and once again, the numbers are okay, with the exception so far on Alpha Surge that has been dragged drastically down by, shall we say, the expert who has put his opinion in.
Well, the roster of Alpha Surge is Buddha, Leroni, Phoenix, and Tyson. Phoenix being around this tier for a long time. Leroni has been there for a season or 2, but earlier rival, and then Buddha coming down some time ago was elite. We can see it might not have been as predicted, but maybe this roster does well. I don't really believe so. I would more agree with GM and GM than Argent Stingray, but let them prove me wrong. And then for the roster of Green Phoenix, a 4th, 6th, and 4th placement for this roster with Abdul Koder, who has been player of the season for Prospect, but that was quite a bit of time ago. And then I'm not sure I can say much about Gregor Bomba, Senko, Razor. But since it's Stingray's Challenger team, I just have to believe because he does find those players. So we'll just see.
Certainly so. Moving swiftly, though, on to the likes of the 4th spot. Azteca, and of course Solaris has popped out here. And I've just had a brief look here, and once again, Azteca, Arc is favouring quite a lot here in terms of this one, has been somewhat dropped down by the respective 2. One of them has been Stingray, but it seems GM667 has somewhat backed your thoughts onto this one, first of all.
Yeah, those are quite divisive when it comes to the opinions. For Azteca, we have a 6th by me, a 3rd by Arch, and a 5th by GM. This is pretty much simply down to how you believe Kendo and Shin can carry this roster. My reasoning for this low placement, and probably also for GM, is just that Shin is not playing the game at all, which he has not been doing for about 1.5 years when he was on my team back then, while Kendo has been playing. But Freestyler Chris and both Ghosty are not known to me, and with their low CMV, they would have to drag a lot of weight if they want to support their 2 main players. So I think a mid-table finish is justifiable here. On the other side, we have Systema Solaris, who had a first pick with KB, which was very interesting to a lot of people, but they believe he should be very good, together with Niche, who dropped down from Rival and has always been on that Alpha Search roster with Bailey Mensu. And last season Aiko, which has played together for, I believe, 3 seasons now, and is now on his own in Challenger. And a lot of people believe he can be really good, but they haven't shown that so far in the scrims and games they've played, so we'll just have to wait if he can adapt.
Fair enough. We do see Serene and Forge popping out at this point here, and shall we say the experts dramatically disagrees here on terms of everybody else so far here. Marks, I don't often say this here, but this has massively been polarized by Ark's opinion on this, and I don't necessarily disagree with him that often, but with a man who's playing in the tier, suggesting both of these two teams should be at the top here, somebody's got to be dramatically wrong here, surely.
I mean, Arch is also playing the tiers. Stingray is, to my knowledge, very, very well versed. At least usually he's very well versed in those lower tiers. So with sort of Serene, we have Akma and Crimkiller have played on Una 6 months of ERS. They finished mid-table. Of everyone's favorite caster and Sir Pegasus.
Sorry, who?
Obviously on the roster. Yeah, I said what I said. And then Banan, who I'm not really, I haven't really heard much about, but GM predicting them first, Arch and Stingray both predicting that about mid-table. I would have probably landed closer to Arch and Stingray on this one. And then for the other side of Forge, apprentices, there's Starman Bozo and Rubix, who have been a part of the league for quite a bit. Then Skep, who I've heard some things about being a very wanted player in draft, at least. I haven't heard much about Volley, but that's just mince up, so probably he's gonna do his job. Arch putting this team lower about mid-table, Stingray putting them second, GM first. So polarizing opinions of the couch experts. Maybe we can just give them a chance to prove themselves.
Fair enough, fairness, and of course, Vapors has popped up. And Stingray, we've already heard the likes of Archon playing, so he has popped up. It's quite highly up in terms of things here. And I must say here, the 4 tiers has been nearly complete here. It seems to be a lot more hot heaviness in terms of people's disagreement here. But you're well versed, as has been pointed out by Mox. Likewise, a few of the experts here in the background. Are they right to go this far here at this point?
I gotta admit, for Arch's team, for Fearless, this is a ranking of 3 people who are probably biased towards him, with myself, himself, and GM putting them third, second, and second. I've been told by him that they haven't played together so far, and I think I've also read before that they lost their first match today. So we will see how that goes, obviously without Arch because he's currently on vacation. But Kincaid has always done well in Challenger, which is probably the reason they're being put so high, and Arch just having the experience. But I gotta admit, I can also see the roster being lower, and the reason they're so high for me is just because I couldn't justify putting anyone above them. On the other side, we have Wolves, which I've seen a lot of disagreement in the chat so far, but they've done well in preseason, they've done well in scrims, which I've looked at, and Vortex is just first every single time, and they're just winning. Together with Beluluk, who I rate very highly, especially as a third man, if he has a good person who can just carry the team on the offensive side, which is Vortex. Paris will have to drag a lot of weight because he's been upped from academy or other prospect, so we'll see how he fares. But we have a second, and a sixth by GM, so not everyone believes in that team. May be justified, but we will see at the end of the season.
Oh, certainly so. And Shadow and Nazimania has respectively popped out here, and do you know what? By most standards here, I would say that Shadow Esports here, Max, has probably got the best nod of most teams through their respective tiers so far here, 1, 1, and 2 respectively. So, and with names that have been playing around for a long time here, but is the experience going to pull through?
Yeah, so we can start with Shadow of Kyle playing Challenger. He has been playing Rival since at least RSC14. I'm not sure what he was playing earlier. And then the supposed carry of the team is Dom, who has won last year's season. Mystical has been on a little bit of a less playing streak, so maybe if they come back to the game a bit, they can definitely prove the doubters wrong, which that there isn't really many doubters. The first slots are probably the most agreed upon between the three people that were predicting. And I'm pretty sure I've also put Shadow Esports first in my predictions. And then for Legend Mania, it's I think a bit of a different story. Mythics previously being top of the rival tier, about 1630 CMV, coming down to Challenger, and Keeping Sheep, who has been above that CMV range for a few seasons now, who I do actually rate quite highly. I guess then you have Dummy and Specs for the remainder of the roster. I think this roster mainly relies upon Mythics coming back to the game to come back to his like RSC 11 base, I guess. But they're being predicted first, and third, which I would have predicted them a bit lower. But I guess if Mythics come back for the game, I can see this happening.
Well, fair enough there. Alpha Surge has been your Dark Horse, Shadow, respectively, in terms of the predicted champion there. And I would say that'll be fair enough. That wraps up the Challenger tier. We are going to be bouncing to the Prospect here, the fifth and final tier overall here. The likes of the Glacius Conference from the bottoms. So that would be, of course, Symbiotes, Sanctuary, Team Serene, Shadow, Brave, of Fort Templar, Officer of Death Cloud, Solaris, and of course Vulpers at first. Ignis, of course, from Mighty Hades, Forge, Aztec at 20R, Fearless, Panthera, Green Phoenix, DSQ, Legend Media, and of course Illusory Some Fairly. That is, of course, from the statistics side of things. The numbers are on your screen there for your brief and quick look at it, because like everybody here, we do want to see where everybody's thoughts and opinions, and of course these were by Mutz, Singray and Merits, the expert of the tier. Is there going to be more controversy onto this one? We will of course find out. And to slightly shake things up, Mux, we'll be kicking off with you. Vapus and of course 20R are the bottom two of the respective two conferences. Where would you like to start off the conversation here?
Oh, well, I guess let's start with Opel because this actually has been quite surprising to me. I would not put them that low, especially that they actually did reach semifinals in preseason. They did quite well there. Stork has been a consistent prospect player. Scrapstar has gone down a bit in CMV. Chose World not an SSA player for a chance. I might be wrong about that completely, but I probably am. But in general, I would have rated this roster a bit higher. And then with banners, sub-banners previously being admin, probably gonna write a strongly worded letter to Stingray, who put him 10th, as well as Mats. And then on the other side, 20R, Jasmine, Rainbow Coded Gold, Code Fire, and Panya being put 10th, 9th, and 10th on this one. Again, they did better in preseason than this prediction might say, but I don't really have that much to say about this roster. But yeah, both sides of the both conferences have been a bit closer in predictions, at least in the bottom. So we'll just see.
Fair enough. The foot of the table has been revealed, and well, Alpha Stars and Azteca, Stingray has shown to be the next ones, respectively. So, do they deserve to be there? And based on roughly on the numbers of the two here, at least one of them certainly does so. The other one just marginally creeps up.
Yeah, there seem to be a lot of similar picks for the lower teams, but in different order for all three people who have predicted here. But first, to give some context for the Volps pick, Their main player, Papa Sparta, has been banned, and they got a new player just recently, so there was really no reason for people to predict them a lot higher. They can obviously do well, but we haven't seen anything from them, so that's the reason they're bottom. For Alpha Search, we have Tom Based, Razio, Alex, and Otacarp. We're putting them 8th, 8th, and 9th. Tom Based, the only one who has shown good results in the past in the league, which is pretty much the reasoning for us. And on the other side, having a stacker with Robin, Righty, Very Red, and Descent in 9th, 10th, and 9th. We obviously have Robin, who has dropped down from Challenger before, but he has to drag a lot of weight, and I'm personally also biased due to scrims we played against them, and the team just not looking very good in preseason and in the scrims we've seen, so they will have a lot to prove in the season.
Fair enough. We bounce straight over to Sanctuary and DSQ, who, by a brief looks of it, Merits has disagreed with one of the, well, shall we say, the big cheeses around here, the chiefs, depends on which vernacular of the phrase you would like, and Stingray himself and Mox. 5th and 6th is a far different cry to just being, well, shall we say, on the door of potentially a play-in spot. So, disagree, agree, or where's your thoughts onto this one?
For me, I did agree more with Mats and Stingray when it comes to Sanctuary placement. Even though Cruisers has won the previous season, I don't think that they can do the same again due to the fact of not having the go-to kid on the roster, even though they could have. But the placement of 8th is not really that surprising to me. And then when it comes to the Ignis side, this has been much closer in the sense that this team of DSQ has been predicted 8th on average, but the predicted average was 6.7. So there just wasn't that much agreement between the three people choosing. The roster of Chai, Psycho, Amja, Strip, and Dirty Dwarf. I guess with a stats ranking that was very high as well. I guess the stats ranking is not really that important to Stingray, Mats, and Merits in predicting final standings.
Must not be. For Templar and Forge just popped out as 7th here, and I think the biggest conversation there is not the word bracket reset because Sauce is there, but Merits, the local expert, has had them in 10th Stingray, which is a far big cry here compared to everybody else.
Yeah, I also find it quite surprising with having Fuzzy on the team, also known as Teddy, who's been in Challenger before and also played in 1500 like a year ago, and has looked good in the games I've seen of him. I'm being honest, I haven't seen Sauce play in a while, but I just trust his ability. And Torga and Flairwolf are just decent thirds, which sounds like I'm putting them very high, but I have them in 7th, because just other teams are stronger in this conference, so with 7th, and 10th, they're being put at the 7th place, which is more than fair from what I'm seeing here. On the other side, as already said by Mox, the middle of the pack is just incredibly close, with everyone being around the 6th average, and Fork ending up on the bottom side of that with a 6th, 8th, and 4th in predictions, with Endrick, Buckets, Maurice, and Pace on the roster.
Well, there we have it. Let the doubters be doubters, but will they be doubting, in theory, the playing spots? The likes, of course, Serene and Panthera has popped out here, and I'll just have a brief look here. And Mutz, who has, not to steal your thunder here, has him 3rd. It's a shame he's not here because I would like to defend that statement, but are we right in saying that he should be that bold?
I mean, it's just predictions are predictions, and even though that this roster of Druid, Revice, Neil, and Kevin on Axe Fur, has been predicted quite differently between Stingray and Merits. They were placed 6th, and we will see them again later. Realistically, this is like a middle of the pack team in my opinion. So I do agree with the average more than with Mutrik. And then when it comes to the other side, it's Panfera. Andre, Big Chaps are two admins right now. I believe there might have been some bias going up for Stingray, some copium that Andre will be able to do much. I believe I have seen some screenshots of them being carried by their main player, which does not bode well, but I guess a placement of 6 by the 3 people predicting and 6 on stats rank overall makes it seem maybe they even undersold them.
Fair enough. Mighty Hades, 5th. Symbiotes, likewise for the Glacius Conference. And Stingray, just like that, we do have, shall we say, 2 casters on one team. Surprisingly, the big man not on his own franchise either. So it's been a season, shall we say, everybody's in the big shuffle as well too here.
They are indeed. And the predictions are not getting closer, at least when it comes to the 3 people that are predicting. Because when we look at Might of Hades and the caster team, as you rightfully told them, with Merit and Smokey Bear together with Jay Leno and Rackeboy, having them in 7th, 6th, and Merits himself putting his own team in 3rd, which might obviously be a bit biased, but the reason for that is simply being not any one of them having any results. But Smokey Bear and Merits will just have to talk the opponents down with a lot of quick shots, and then they will be distracted and they will win the league. However, on the other side, we have Symbiotes with Nikira, Overdrive, Neuronics, and Polar, which is a team I personally rate quite highly, simply because Overdrive won the tier for me last season. He came back. He didn't play a lot. He was in ERS in Prospect, so 1 tier above the current one, and is currently sitting at 1340 together with Nikira, who is also a really good player in Academy. But we will just have to see how the dust is falling off on those 2 players, and if Neuronics can be the 3rd those 2 meet to get high in placements.
Now, Max, we bounce straight over to Green Phoenix and, of course, Brave Spark. 4th, of course, as we see it on the board here, and for the most part, everybody agrees with everybody, bar Merits with one particular 7th spot coming out. He does not rate this team quite highly in the form of Green Phoenix.
Well, it's just like, again, in this case, to me, Stingray always goes for those players that not really that many people would go for, scouring through ball chasing replays and those ways. Are also having quite an interesting nationality set in RSC of Mozambique. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that there could be a story there, but I don't know. Mechlo already having some Smurf allegations, but those were swiftly swept away. Again, Mary's not agreeing with Mats and Stingray on the placement. He placed them 7th, but the 2 fourths, putting them 4th, overpowering that. And then on the other side, we have the roster of Brave, of Razor, Fatikal, Meshrak, and Skadishu. Skadishu being sub. Fatikal, AGM, very experienced person. I don't know about being an experienced player. Razor, probably pushing the team up. I have seen Meshrak, I haven't seen really what he can do. But I believe that this is indeed a mid-roster team.
Well, we're knocking quite comfortably to the top 2, but we are just wiping our feet at the doorstep, third, in the form of Deathcloud and Fearless. So Stingray, I would briefly had a look at it, and it doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. I would say I don't know the tier that well, but is this right, first of all, here? Because it looks like DevCloud's the closest one that everybody seems to agree on here.
Well, I'm also surprised. We only have one outlier, which is a fourth next to 2/3. So all three of us seem to agree. And from the placements I've seen in chat and in the channels before of everyone doing their power rankings, this is about where they belong. I've seen a lot of thirds. I've seen a lot of fourth. With Stones, who's always been a great player for this tier for Prospect. I don't want to pronounce the next one, but XBXHII, everyone knows him. He has been here, but he's also been leaving teams, so we will see how that goes in the end. Dave the Rave 0692, and of course the GOAT Yidri Kid on that roster. Might be someone to look at, even though I don't think they have a chance to win the tier in the end. On the other side, we have Fearless with a Mayday 7 who has to come out without Small, who he has played really well together with on Alpha Search and ERS last season, and Masters, who's also been doing well on Fearless, together with Carl and, of course, one of the predictors, Muchuk, putting himself second, myself putting them third, and Merits being a bit of an outlier, putting them sixth. But I believe especially in the Ignis conference, the middle of the pack, like between third and sixth, seems to be quite close. So we'll see how this team fares in the end.
Well, we bounce quite happily to the playoffs in terms of what seems to be the secure teams, Chateau and Legendmania. And from a brief look, like it seems to be the first sort of normal bit of agreement here. So, Mox, by the looks of it, Chateau nearly all twos across the board here. Only Mutts disagree, and of course with Legendmedia pushing that one slightly a further field. But it seems to be those are the two most confident teams to at least challenge that sort of upper echelon in terms of the prospect here.
Yeah, you have Mats, obviously, even though in this season not on Shadow associated to Shadow, so he probably wants them to do well. Ozorn, obviously a very good player. And you have C, who has changed names quite a few times, as also been Celeste and Onesie. Generally a very good pickup for fantasy if anyone wants to try, but has been known to not leave teams quite at least last season of ERS. Veiled has been playing for quite a bit of time, and I don't have much to say about Hell on sub, but that's it. And then for the other side we have Legend Mania with E, Robo, Axiom, and Chronos. This team has done quite well in pre-season, coming just about second, losing in a reverse sweep to Illusory. Generally, Robo, Axiom have been playing Prospect. I'm not sure about the end Chronos, but being predicted first by Stingray, third Mushrook, and Merge second. I believe that this roster is gonna do quite well.
Fair enough. And for the likes of Lucianary and of course Solaris here staying on the top two of also Prospect as well, are they fair picks?
They are. When we look at the predictions everyone has put in, was putting Systema Solaris in first, second, and first. We'll see if Yannick can finally get his second win on the board, together with Sheep, who is one of the best players in the tier, in my opinion. Simdog dropping down from quite a good roster on Council of Sir, I believe, last season in RSC Challenger. And Drawker, who I personally rate very highly and who's been doing bits in pre-season in the games they've played. So they're definitely a justified first. On the other side, we have Illusory with Hansen and Tuten, who most certainly belong to the best players in the tier. However, it's not quite sure how they will work with their other two, because I've been told that Nikes only was recently added to the roster and they've just played one time together. So we will have to wait throughout the season how they play, and therefore I disagree on the placement of first by Mutz and Merits, so putting them second, just because Hansen and Tuten are just better than this tier.
Fair enough. Team Serene is the alleged dark horse of the respective tier, and Terra in terms of Solaris as the predicted champions. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. That wraps up all 5 of our respective tiers. But it would be interesting, I would say, to see how the franchises fare overall here. So we'll be moving to that one next as all here. And Joe, we'll start off with Stingray. We do see the right-hand side of the boards, quite looking like sort of Mighty Hades, 20R, Green Phoenix, Azteca as well. I mean, you are sitting third according to that. So how do you feel, first of all?
Well, looking at that and remembering how the predicted outcomes of the franchise standings look, I can see quite some difference between those. Seeing a lot of teams down below who will be in the top 10 in the, like, when all the predictions, which they definitely will come true, that we've made here. But we're also seeing Volp's Esports in first, which is very interesting, being a new franchise to the league with experience franchise management, but definitely new as well. And also Fork and Pantera being so far down, even though they have quite the legacy of being one of the best franchises, but preseason doesn't define anything, and looking at the predictions we made, they will definitely have something to prove.
And Marks, yourself here, your thoughts so far of the 20 franchises in front of us here, who stands out, who may have been, shall we say, looking for a bit of extra tuition behind the scenes here, who has, well, disappointed, to be polite about it.
I mean, yeah, just not to say exactly the same thing as Stingray, but I did want to say that the power rankings here of preseason ranks and stats don't really come close to what the people that were predicting did. So we will see some that are completely on the opposite side, but some that are actually accurate in the first team that we will be discussing in a second. I assume we will, or I'm not sure. Mal?
No, we will be. You are absolutely right here. And to read them as following from the left-hand side, the blue at Shadow Esports, Alpha Surge, Solaris, Team Serene for Templar, Symbiote, Sanctuary, Brave Esports, Vapor, and of course Death Cloud. On the right-hand side is Fearless Illusion, Green Phoenix, Lights Media, Azteca Ford, Minor Hades, Panthera, DSQ, and 20R. So going from your point there, Morks, where do you want to go with it?
Well, you can see DevCloud Esports was placed 20th in stats ranking, and they are 10th in their conference, being actually 20th in total. And then compare that to the people that are right above them, Volps, who are placed 17th based on predictions by the people predicting, but were actually third in stats rankings. Same of 20R, they were actually second in stats ranking, but placed 19th in predictions of the so-called experts, who we might see to disagree with.
Stinger, any final thoughts here before we reveal our 2 awards, shall we say, if you want to call it that?
Oh, well, as Mox rightfully said, this is in some cases more or less swapped from preseason results. So yeah, those are first of not being taken into account as much. And in the end, you will see, if you look at the end table, they will also not count for much. And we will see teams winning preseason ending up in 9th. But this is all to see at the end.
Oh, fair enough. We will see how it comes to it. Of course, Legend Media, and of course the franchise with the general manager, Cynics, Jaffa and Wilkie, the 2 assistants AGMs who have came out here. So they will be quite happy that Many has put them forward. But the predicted champions, I would ask you to make a prediction somewhat, gentlemen, but I think we already know where that is going with Shadow Esports here, with Mr. Fishes, the Deadly Dumb, and Mithril, who we saw a few of his predictions earlier in the Elite tier. But, gentlemen, I believe that wraps up everything in terms of power standings, rankings, opinions, and I'm sure there's quite a lot of, shall we say, opinions onto this one. But we do have one thing left, and it's apparently Feel of the Week. And I've never seen staff look so happy before. Mel, would you like to bring that up, please?
in the week that is currently happening.
And for anybody, we may have a slight technical difficulties of our own here, and that was our very own Mal with VMix moving across here. So we have two fields up the weeks, if you want to call it that one. Mark's just rightly pointed out there, of course, the scheduling issue of 2035 there. So look forward to seeing that match. Whether we're all still here and playing the game will be a different matter, but there it is. So if you are looking forward to that one, get it into your calendar. But gentlemen, we do have the start of league play already underway. We do have results coming in here. The start of the Stingray, correct me wrong, I believe that might be Friday in terms of the broadcast of games.
Yes, exactly. First stream will be on Friday with other ones on Saturday and Sunday. We haven't yet decided who will be playing, but you can decide that in the stream polls and schedule channel on the main server, where we have seen a lot of activity so far, with some games already having like 30 votes. So if you want to have your team on stream, don't complain to us. Just go to this channel and vote for your own team to be on stream, and maybe get some friends as well. So I'll just give it back to you for now.
Well, thank you very much. A shake of a head there. We're wondering what Friends is, but don't be alone. Tune in and join the Discord down below there. But Mox, any final words before we say goodbye to yourself?
I mean, the chat is asking for a dub, which I don't think is gonna happen. At least not for me. I don't know if you guys would wanna be on, be clipped quickly. I think we still have to thank the sponsors for the season. That being Team Serene, the Pinchmen, Systema, Solaris, Brave, and please help me out.
No, you keep going.
That was the first.
Anybody else want to help him out here? Might as well play Guess Who here on that one. Stingray, final words here while Mox quickly scatters here, who may have been the first logo on the top left there.
Well, this would be Badass Studios, who've been a partner for a very long time, but you're fully correct in the other ones, 3 of them being franchises, so thanks a lot to them. But as far as I know, that wraps it up for tonight. And I hope Mox is leaving us, or he might be leaving us before Danny and me are calling it quits, but this decision is fully up to Mal, and unfortunately we're stuck here until he decides to leave us out.
I can't believe Mox is dabbing. You just can't see it. Sadly, everybody onto that one. But everybody, a huge thank you for tuning in, of course, to the power rankings in terms of the RSC cast. Where the likes of Arknot here, Tavish will be, of course, back on it, but the Zoom Kings McCall. We might even see Maisie make an appearance, of course, in the next couple of weeks, as Stingray has rightly pointed out. Friday will be the start of the games. We hope you enjoy the start of the league play campaign here. And Mox has unfortunately slipped himself. You want to duck yourself a bit further here? We can still see the hair. Wee bit more. Thank you. That was Mox. That was Stingray. I have been Danny. It has been a pleasure to have everybody here. Stay safe until, of course, the next stream. We'll see you then. Good night.
The year is 1991. Birds and people are living together in seemingly perfect harmony, until one day a young man catches fire. This is Phoenix.